Ouattara has condemned Sunday's attack by gunmen from Al-Qaeda's North African branch that left 18 people dead at an Ivory Coast resort town. Ouattara also declared 3 days of mourning and raised the country's terrorism alert to its highest level. Next week's African CEO Summit Forum will still go ahead despite these recent attacks. Richard Chelin, he is the project coordinator at Good Governance Africa, and he joins us this morning in our studio. Richard, good morning to you and welcome to Morning Live.
Good morning to you and thank you for having me.
Thank you very much for coming through indeed. Now, what triggered these latest attacks?
Well, we can see it's been a pattern from the Al-Qaeda group, which have been resurgence from the time they went underground and after the 2013 Mali uprising. Only to start committing attacks they began in November last year in the Radisson Blu Hotel in Mali. And then that was a few months later in January, we found attacks in Ouagadougou as well. And now the latest attack is in Ivory Coast, the Grand Bassam Hotel Resort.
Should we be worried? I mean, you're saying so that it's the third major attack in the West Africa within 4 months.
Yes, there is cause for concern because it seems that it's a pattern that's been developing, and one of the most concerning aspects is that the last two attacks were perpetrated in countries which have no links to Al-Qaeda terrorism or have not had any Al-Qaeda attacks before, Burkina Faso and Côte d'Ivoire.
But now Al-Qaeda's North African wing is claiming responsibility specifically for these attacks. What does it mean?
It means that claiming responsibility means that they were behind it, they planned it, they masterminded it, they had a plan to go into action, and they executed it according to their, to their plans. So it means that they're sending out a message to the continent, to the countries, to the continent, and also to the ISIS branch, which has seemed to be overshadowing them in the past couple of years. But now it seems that they've been resurgent, and they said that they are a force to be reckoned with.
Now, we do know that the country has declared a 3-day mourning period that started earlier this week on Monday. What is the current situation like now in Ivory Coast?
Well, in the aftermath of any attacks, there will be a rise. I mean, there will be, because you're not expecting where the next attack will be. It could be in another part of the country, it could be the same place. So there is this form of uncertainty which comes with any attacks. And also there will be a rising security alert, which means there will be more security and more security checks, and you will see armed forces patrolling similarly to what happened in Mali, to what in Ouagadougou. Even like we saw in the aftermath of the Paris attack, there's been a step up in security, meaning you will see a lot of security forces patrolling the areas.
Now, many investors will be gathering for the CEO of Companies Summit. Will this in a way have an effect on those that have already invested in that country, particularly because it happened close to Abidjan?
There is always this concern, and yes, and that was one of the aims of the terrorist attack, is to deter investments from coming into the country, from investors and investing, and to get a hit at the government, and that's the aim of any terrorist attack. But in that form, in terms of investment, yes, there will be security concerns, but I'm sure the government is stepping up and trying its best to show that that it's under control, the situation is under control, and we've seen that they've received the help from the French. The French President François Hollande came out in support of the Ivorians and promised help in form of forces and intelligence and information gathering. Now,
besides the deployment of high security forces, what should the government be doing now?
Well, the government should be, in addition to that, the government should be looking at other, when it's stepping up its forces, it should not target innocent civilians, because this is usually what happens. You have a roundup, and you have to be careful in who, certain targets are. Do not, cause any grievances in the population, because you don't want an escalation of violence, because we know that Ivory Coast does have a history of political violence, and we don't want that to flare up in any way, or to bring that, or to lead to such a situation. So they should be careful in the terms of security, but also be vigilant and also be careful in how they approach it. And
now, one of our soccer teams from back home here, Kaizer Chiefs, is scheduled to play a game in Ivory Coast. Personally, do you believe it's safe for them to still proceed with their journey?
Well, personally, I believe that they do have good security in Abidjan, and if they're playing in Abidjan also, then they will have a good security forces there, and because we also have foreign forces which will be coming and stepping up security. However, there's always have to be careful, I would say. And lately, the government has come up and said that the security will be in place. So it's up to the coaches and so to decide whether they feel that the team is safe to go and play.
But do you believe there's also a possibility of more attacks to take place? I mean, the fact that Al-Qaeda has claimed responsibility on this one, do you think that we might have more of such in the coming future?
Unfortunately, with a terrorist group like Al-Qaeda, and we've seen the recent pattern in causing attacks in different countries which have not previously known to have Islamists residing there. It's a cause of concern that yes, there will be further attacks, and that in that case, the regional bodies as well should be each country should have a collaboration in terms of securing volatile places and such, and there should be a step up from the regional body as ECOWAS and also the AU as well to prevent such attacks from happening.
And I believe the situation must be worrying for the ordinary civilians of Ivory Coast.
It is. It always is in such an aftermath of the conflict, as we've seen in the case of Mali, as we've seen in the case of Burkina Faso, and now Ivory Coast. So yeah, it is a cause for concern, but also it is a call for the governments of the region to step up and lead into counterterrorism measures.
Well, Richard, we're going to have to leave it right there, but thank you very much for your time. That was Richard Chelin. He's the project coordinator at Good Governance Africa, talking to us about the recent terror attacks that left 18 dead in Ivory Coast.